Well, hello. In Napoleon Hill's 17 Principles of Personal Achievement, the first lesson is definiteness of purpose. Definiteness of purpose is the starting point of all achievement. Without a purpose and a plan, people drift aimlessly through life. Talk Leadership with Cedrick starts now. Well, hello and welcome to Talk Leadership with Cedrick. Everybody needs a little TLC. Talk Leadership with Cedrick is where we focus on leadership and personal growth with business leaders, educators, and local thought leaders. Our goal is to introduce our audience to leaders who are making an impact with innovative ideas. Our guiding leadership principle is the law of contribution, which says growing yourself enables you to grow others. You see, you can't give what you don't have. So first, you must grow yourself in order to grow others. We believe outstanding leaders like yourself will help us to grow others. So tonight, we have another dynamic leader with us. You see, every week, I like to do a proper introduction, of my guests. And tonight, I want to do a proper introduction of our guest, who is Miss Sarah Holywell. So, Sarah, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Cedrick. I'm very excited to be here.
Awesome. Well, Sarah is a senior manager in enterprise learning and development, responsible for putting in the infrastructure and the content to support a culture of continuous learning at Allstate. Sarah is a graduate of Indiana University, where she double majored in English and philosophy. After college, Sarah joined the JET program, teaching English in a small village in Japan. She then returned home to Indiana briefly before taking off again and going to spread her wings. And she went to get her master's degree from University of Kent in Canterbury, England. Here's a little fun fact that you should know. You get to matriculate, is what she says, in Canterbury Cathedral of Canterbury Tales fame. That's pretty cool. Sarah worked briefly as an instructional designer and facilitator for economical insurance in Waterloo, Canada, before seeing the light and coming to the great country of Texas. And this is where she got into the leadership development space. And she started working for Abbott Laboratories in mainly in product sales, enabling training and development for the sales teams, right? And after about 10 years with Abbott, Sarah became a senior manager for laboratory diagnostics training, managing training for sales, field service, and direct customers. And this is where, Sarah and I met Sarah a lot, was when she was doing training for the sales organization. During her tenure, Sarah brought in Inkling, which is a solution for knowledge management, as well as created a visualization lab for the service organization. And she really helped to automate really automate the sales training process and make it a more complex tool for diagnostic instrumentation side of the house. Now, Sarah joined Allstate in September of 2018. When she started with Allstate, she realized that not listening, let me say that again. When she realized that not listening to Audible or TED Talks, let me just start all over, folks. It's been a long day. I'm sorry. I never do this. But when she is not listening to Audible or TED Talks, she may be taking a Pluralsight?
Mm-hmm.
We have to talk about that. All right. And then an EDX class to learn something new. You can find her teaching Pilates as well.
Mm-hmm.
Sarah has a 7-year-old son, Ewan,
Mm.
and two rambunctious cats, Floyd and Baxter, and an ancient sausage dog called Winston. So let's welcome Sarah to the show. And
I
let
love
me
the
say
proper
this.
introduction. Thank you.
I am sorry for butchering up your intro, but hey, folks, this is what you get with live video sometimes, and I just know now that I'm human. So, Sarah, let's talk. Let's dive right into what we're going to talk about today. And Sarah is an expert in the leadership and development space. And guys, she has a lot of stuff that she's going to share with you today. And I'm excited. So if you're listening live or if you're listening to this later, be sure you get the links that we're going to share with you throughout the show. All right. So, Sarah, I kind of read your bio, but let's tell our listeners about your journey to leadership and how did you get to where you are today?
Yeah, so first of all, I apologize. That was a big mashup of crazy things, so totally understandable. That it was very real. But yeah, I mean, I think that mashup of crazy things is definitely part of my journey. That I've always been really enamored with learning and even just sort of the physiology of how the brain learns. And so after I did a degree in English and I taught English as a second language, I really wanted to sort of get into adult learning theory. And so I did some certifications in adult learning and instructional design. And found that, as I started to design courses, what I really loved were the leadership ones. And so immersed myself in that, taking a lot of the off-the-shelf courses and learning to train those. And it's so fascinating because I think you take little nuggets from every course that you write or facilitate and sort of develop your own style. So when I got into leadership myself, I felt like I had a lot of tools in my tool belt. And I try to, really have that very whole person approach, sort of different strokes for different folks. What does this person need to motivate them? What does this person need to sort of be able to discover what makes them a great leader? So I really rely on a lot of the things that I've taught in the past, but also my relationship with that person to figure out what's going to make them like the best Cedrick or the best whomever that they're going to be.
Well, that is awesome. And I'll tell you what, Sarah, I know you spent a long time in corporate, right? And when you're in corporate, you meet a lot of different people, a lot of new people, and you're trying to help them all to develop. Some of them at the same pace, some of them maybe a little bit faster than others, right? But as you move throughout your corporate career, help our audience understand how flexible you had to be over the years, either in whether it's relocating or flexible in how you help people go to another level in learning and in training.
I think that the advice I would dispense about flexibility and resilience are that I try to always see myself as a work in progress, right? I am always a learner as well. And so in order to roll with the punches, I think that change agility is fundamentally learning agility. So when you have a new boss or when, corporates ask you to do something perhaps that you're not familiar with or you're reticent about, it's all about your ability to find resources to help you out, to give you ideas, and to just try. I think that if you kind of see yourself as this work in progress always and say, I'm just going to try it out, that's the type of change agility and learning agility that you need to be successful. So that's kind of how I try to approach like situations like that.
Sure. Yeah. Well, that's awesome. Now, Sarah, I always find that when you're trying to train people, and you guys used to do a really good job with this, trying to train people, we struggled a little bit. I always struggled with a little bit trying to help people catch up to where I think they should be versus where they really are, right? So how do you, and that's not one of the questions I gave you, but it just came to me. How do you help people when maybe they're not moving as at the same pace as everybody else in the class?
Yeah, good point. And I think too, it's like in the class or in life, right? It's
Mhm.
trying to like perspective taking and empathy, I think are really, really important skills for us all to try and have. So definitely there are times when you think, oh, this person is, I'm frustrated because this person is not moving at the pace that I want. So I try really hard to say, okay, so what's blocking that? What's getting in the way? And through things like using the grow model, which I know you're familiar with, which
Yeah.
helps someone move from sort of the inside out, and other questioning models, you can really sort of ascertain what's going on there. So I think that stopping for a minute, letting the world take a turn and asking a lot of questions to get that person to self-diagnose what the issue is, that really helps them take accountability and start to move forward. Because if you're constantly sort of trying to download and say, like, why is it fast enough? What's not going on? It's just not going to, that's not a way to sort of move the needle, right? And get people um, to persuade them to do what you want them to do or what they already know how to do. So asking those questions, getting them to decide what they need to do, I think that's the best way of having people do what they already like know how to do and what they can do within themselves.
Well, that's very good, and you have to in that learning development space, you have to be very patient, if you will, I guess, right?
Yeah.
And I know that you are very patient, I always liked. At Abbott, Sarah and I worked together, and I always liked your approach to something. You would always ask a question, like we would be in the sales training or whatever, and someone is not getting it. You would always ask a question, whereas the sales leaders, we were always like, look, all right, let's go do this.
It's just, but it's like the same. I mean, it's two sides of a coin, right? That sometimes you just, it's just like using your Jedi mind tricks, right? You kind of have to know that, like, when you ask a question and you get people to answer, that's a really powerful way of changing behavior. I actually heard something, if I could go off script a little bit, this
Sure.
pretty interesting thing the other day about two sort of seemingly like out of the blue questions that are really helpful to ask. So let's say that your kid is not cleaning their room and you want them to. So instead of saying like, clean your room or you'll get this consequence, or, like, why aren't you cleaning your room, and just, coming down on them, you could say, and it comes from the world of counseling, you could say, on a scale of 1 to 10, like, how likely are you to clean your room right now? And then the next question, so let's say the kid says 2. So the next question you say is, well, why didn't you say 1? Why did you say 2? Why didn't you go lower than that? And then the kid seemingly will say, well, maybe I lost my homework the other day, so I've got some reason to do it. And that's when you have it, right? It's getting to that level where you're starting to change behavior by asking questions that get the person to decide they want to make a commitment and they want to do it.
I actually like that, and I'm actually writing it down because I'm going to use that. Not necessarily for cleaning the room, but for other things. I really like that. Okay. Okay. All right. So, leaders come in all different types of sizes and different types of packages, right?
Mhm.
What are strengths do you feel are important for successful leaders?
Yeah. Again, I would go back to this idea of leaders they need to be change agile. They need to be good visionaries, but they have to also be able to put legs on the vision and make it happen. I think that more and more as we look at, with robotics and automation and machine learning and AI, all of this coming into play, I think the really human skills are the most important for a leader. So it's not about being able to pull the sales numbers, and although that's really important, it is about like how can you forecast like what's going to go on with sales? Like no one could have forecast this pandemic, right? But
Right.
now we're in this new paradigm where we have to be able to lead differently. We have to show up differently on conference calls. And so being able to, even with some degree of certainty almost, like look at the trends that are happening and be able to like articulate a vision about things that might continue to go on and sort of live into that. So I think leaders need to be really good at reading the tea leaves and researching, and then just having really great human-centered interactions with their people to sort of bring it all together in a way. And that's definitely how I try to show up with my teams.
Yeah, I really like that. And really what you're saying is those soft skills for a leader are just more important
Like
now.
hard skills now. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's John Maxwell team. We say the law of connection says the leader touched the heart before they ask for the hand, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
really, that's what you're saying.
Completely.
And I absolutely agree with you 100%. So, this crisis, like you said, no one could predict this crisis, right? If someone came to you in December of last year and said, hey, Sarah, in 2020, you won't be able to go to work. And in fact, not just your subdivision, not just your city, not just your state, but the whole United States. In fact, the whole world will be shut down. You'd have been like, you're crazy. That's not going to happen. Right. So now we had to manage different and lead different. So how did you guys adjust and manage different through this current pandemic?
So a couple of things. So I think we're now in the resilience stage of the pandemic, right? Where it's different skills than when we started. So if I walk it back to when we started, we already had a pretty good handle on using technology like Zoom and things like that to deliver. So we were already in a pretty good space. I think that what has changed for us is that there was a period of time where we thought, okay, well, the boats have arrived at the new shore. We're all using Zoom. It's fine. But then we realized, you know what? We got to burn the boats. Like, we're not going back. Like, things can't go back to the way they were. And so when you get to that point, you say, okay, so now it's resilience time. Now we got to build out the island and make sure that it's going to work in the long term. And, this is our new home. And so I think to this end, we've been trying as a team to think about the opportunities that this presents. So one area in particular that I would highlight is the idea of executive presence. So this is something, right, that we hear about all the time. Like, you need to have more presence and followership. And I think that this is this amazing, great leveler of that, where, as a woman or as a person of color, right, the advice was always like super milquetoast about like, oh, dress like for the job you want and 2 levels ahead. And then when you look at like who those people are, it's predominantly old white men. And so it becomes this like really just sort of like not helpful dialogue to have. But now this playing field has totally been leveled. And so we've been trying to take advantage of this, and we've actually put out a class in executive presence for the digital age. And we've started talking about how to like live into this vision of a more democratic workplace. And I feel really excited about this type of work where we can sort of push forward and say, you know what, like, there's this hyper casualization of work now, and that's a good thing, right? That we're all kind of showing up, and it's our knowledge capital and not necessarily our appearance or anything else that's giving us that's getting us ahead. And so we're trying to really sort of live into some of these new opportunities, I guess, that the pandemic presents.
Sure. Yeah. Well, in along with the pandemic, there's been this real shift in focus for a lot of organizations. I've gone out to do training. We have a training called Another Seat at the Table, and it's a diversity and equity and inclusion type of training, right? And it's amazing, but this pandemic, along with a lot of other issues that are happening here in the US, has caused organizations, major organizations, right, to shift. You've always had some organizations, at Abbott, we have had affinity networks, and some organizations had those, but a lot of organizations didn't have those things. And now we're seeing this huge shift in this area. And I think it's important to have, and it's important to get to exactly what you're talking about with understanding. See, when you start understanding the human side or the human, the soft skills, right? All of those things come into play, right? Because now I don't just see Cedrick, the black guy, or Sarah, the female, right? I see another human being. I see a person here who can contribute to the organization.
Right. And who's dealing with the same stuff you are, right? Staying home and not going out, and we're all kind of, in this together. And I would say even more than that too, like we've tried, Cedrick, to be like really real on our team. And so we decided to use the moment to talk about social justice and to talk about privilege and injustices. And so everyone turns their camera on, and we've had a number of conversations that have been just really hard conversations that maybe would be difficult when we're all in different locations. Like some of my team is in Dallas, some is in Chicago, some are at other locations of Allstate. But the Zoom offers this opportunity for us all to be together virtually, really have like the hard conversations and talk about how the pandemic has adversely affected people of color. And same thing with like voter suppression going on. Like we've really tried to like have these tough conversations, and so sort of blur the lines in the same way that they are now between work and home, so that you really bring your whole person to work. And that is what's been just so exciting to me, is just to be able to do that. I just never had an opportunity to feel so much like it's not like check your like home life at the door. Like just it's all the same now. We're all in it together.
Yes. Well, that is awesome that you guys have branched out on that journey, and it's amazing when organizations embrace it and embrace the difficult conversation piece, right? It may not be difficult conversation in terms of people arguing, but just difficult because it's normally been taboo in the workplace, right? And you may have a question. Well, Cedrick, how do you deal with this? Whereas before you're like, well, I'm not asking that question, or well, maybe we go to the bar or something, then I may ask the question. But other than that, you're not asking it, right? So, well, that's awesome. Good leaders ask great questions, right? So what are some questions that you've heard, or people have asked of you, or you've asked and you thought, man, that's a great question?
I really loved this question when I saw it too. I thought this was like a really fun setup. So one of my favorite questions to ask people, to my earlier point about getting you to diagnose what you need, is to say to them, so if you were sort of like floating over your body and watching this conversation, what advice would you give yourself? I really like this one because people really have to pause and say, like I should do this. It's sort of like this great turning point where they realize, okay, yeah, that's a good idea. Generally too, I like to follow the sort of 5 whys, right? We talk about this a lot in sales. So let's say that you're trying to sell some consulting services, and you would say, I would really like you to take advantage of these consulting services. And they say, no, I'm not interested right now. Well, why? Well, because we don't have the budget for it now. You don't have the budget. Well, why is that? Oh, well, we had some bad, actually had a bad hire, and now that person's left. And so, I used a lot of money up in that. Oh, well, you had a bad hire. Like, why is that? Like, what do you attribute that to? So just this whole idea too of like drilling down. I think that people tend to sort of, lobby one question and then move on. Like when you watch the presidential debates, right? The really good moderators, they keep at it versus like giving a question and moving to the next. And so you really get to the nut of the problem. So I really believe in that as well.
Yeah, I absolutely love some organizations call it the 5 whys. Some say 7 whys. So they go 7 levels deep. And it's amazing the transformation that can happen when you do it. Now, a lot of people are not willing to keep asking why. They get afraid of what's going to happen or what's.
Just do it, right? They don't care. Like, gosh, to the win.
Exactly. When I was a young sales rep, we were doing it was a sales national sales meeting, and I was in this group with Cindy White, Jeff McCowan, Scott Ingalls, right? And I'm a new sales guy, right? And Jeff said, Cedrick, all you got to remember is this. He said, just remember to ask these three words: why, how, and what. He said, anything you want to ask, just put one of those words in front of it, and it's going to get you deeper. And absolutely, I remember that through my whole career, just to keep asking it, and I tell people that still today. But this is some good stuff, and thanks for sharing with us, with our audience. In fact, Travis is listening, and he commented 5 whys. He says good stuff. He likes that. So Sarah, help us understand skills going forward. Right, you talked about earlier that leaders are going to need these human skills, these soft skills. Right. So what are some of the skills that the employee is going to need, not just the leaders, right?
Yeah, definitely. So we've been following a number of skills sort of as a whole organization at all states. So there are things like, they are very human-centered skills, like being able to apply design thinking to a situation. And design thinking is fundamentally just ways of sort of attacking a problem and thinking through it very systematically. So I think that's one that everyone can really take advantage of. I think you talked about change agility earlier on. And so I think that's also a skill that is really, really important no matter what career you're in, the ability to learn a lot and to be able to apply it. I know people might have heard of like the work of Carol Dweck out of Princeton, where she talks about growth mindset. I think that is incredibly important. And in her work, she says that, you take 2 students, one of them is a know-it-all and one of them is a learn-it-all. And then you follow them throughout their careers, and who's more successful? It's the learn-it-all, right? I think that is such, like, so fundamentally important for the next 10 years that we continue to grow our skills. Definitely, there's still a lot of hard skills that are important too. Things like data analysis continue to be really important. I mean, look at the pandemic right now, the ability to do predictive analytics based on the models they're seeing of, people who are sick. What does it look like it's, coming into? This is really important for everyone to be able to look at data sets and to make assumption, or to make take action on those. But I did send you, sort of based on your career, here are the 10 trending skills, like for IT professionals, for engineers, for sales professionals, and for general business professionals. And these are ranked by LinkedIn. So definitely have a look at that. I certainly think that if you're not subscribing to something like LinkedIn Learning, Pluralsight is for like technical upskilling, edX or Coursera. These are great things that you can access. Like edX is totally free. It's out of Harvard. It allows you to skill up in all kinds of areas and take classes. Coursera is out of Princeton. Same idea, basically. It's providing these free, the X stands for it's like their expansion classes. So these are all free as well. So I definitely think that we all need to be lifelong learners, and that's going to be the most important thing for us to be successful. And here's a fun fact. Sorry, this is super long-winded. I didn't mean for it to be.
No, it's perfect.
Fact that, you take 20 kids who are currently in 6th grade right now. Of those 20 kids, 16 of them will have jobs that we can't even imagine right now.
Wow.
Mind-blowing stuff. But just have a think about it. Even 10 years ago, was an Uber driver a job? Was an Instacart shopper a job? All of these things have emerged and continue to be, the world of disruption is just on hyperdrive right now. So if you're interested in that too, have a look at things from the World Economic Forum. They're really the leader in this space of disruption and what to expect.
Well, that is awesome. And what I'm doing for the audience is Sarah has been so gracious to provide us with these links from a study that they work with LinkedIn on is these 5 fastest skill sets for business pros, 5 fastest skill sets for sales pros, for IT pros, and for engineers. And I'm posting those in the comments so that you can then on those links and pull that information up. So let me finish this last one here. So Sarah, while I'm doing that, help us, give us, well, let me think of it a different way. You know, every time I would see you at Abbott, you're always like just smiling, happy,
Yeah.
right? Okay. So help us understand what makes you smile when you get up in the morning and keeps you going and excited all the time.
That's a great question. I completely love that question. Yeah, I mean, I think you have to try to find, like, be curious, right? Be curious and try to find something to learn and something new to dig into all the time. One thing that I think I always tell my team, like, what do you want to be known for? Because I think that discovering that is really, really key to happiness, and happiness in the workplace is so important. So for me, I want to be known as the leader who, continues to still, like, develop stuff. And even though, like, I currently have a team of about 41, so pretty large, but I still not only set the vision, but I'll get in there and I will develop stuff, and I'll ask people, like, what new tools are out there? Because I want to learn some of these too. And so I think being like a player coach and kind of being, like, in it with people, I think they appreciate that, and it makes me happy. I feel like I'm continuing to contribute. So yeah, I want to be known as someone who continues to contribute and continues to sort of help the team, not just a ruler, right? But like someone who's, like, there, like, working, like, with the team, not just, like, on the team, That's what makes me
Yeah.
happy.
Awesome. I really like that. And so one of the things that I always say when people ask me, in fact, a lot of the entrepreneurs that I work with, they already know what my answer is going to be. We'll get on a Zoom and they ask me, so how am I doing? And I always say, I'm always great. Right? And I say that because I truly am, even though I said, look, that doesn't mean I don't have problems. That doesn't mean I have any issues or concerns. It just means I choose to tell myself things are going great.
Mhm.
Right. And it's all about that mental attitude that you take. And I'm going to go back to a point that you made earlier. You said you guys realize that, hey, we have to burn the ships. Right. And it reminded me of in the book Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, when the troop leader took his soldiers out to battle, and he said they got on the ship and they went to the enemy territory, and then he said, burn the ships. Either we are going to reach our goals or we're going to die.
Yeah.
Right. And so, yes, I like that. So we have, Sarah, a segment on the show that's called Would You Rather? All right.
My 7-year-old loves this show. This is his favorite.
Awesome. So here we go. Would you rather live in the desert or on a deserted island?
The desert, definitely. I intend to live in Santa Fe, New Mexico at some point, which is the high desert, because I love it there. So definitely the desert.
Hey, all right. Well, that's the first time I've heard someone say they intend to live there.
And to do that.
Okay. Hey, and folks from Santa Fe, New Mexico, I don't mean anything by it. It's just, you know. All right. Would you rather be the smartest person in the world or be the best athlete in the world?
Smartest.
Smartest. All right.
I mean, I have no hope of being the best athlete in the world. Smartest.
Okay. All right. So, would you? I've never asked this one before. Would you rather never have to shower again or never have to clip your toenails again?
I don't want to smell, so I'm going to hide my mile-long toenails from the world.
Okay. Okay. So 2 more. All right. So would you rather have free Apple products forever or have free Wi-Fi wherever you go?
Free Apple products, hands down. I love Apple. Definitely.
Yeah, me too. All right, last one. Would you rather have $1 million in Amazon gift cards or have $100,000 in real money?
Ooh. I really, this one's really hard. Um, I'll take the real money. I'll take the real money.
Take the real
I
money.
don't
All
want to give Jeff Bezos too much more. He's already like approaching billionaire status, trillionaire status, right? So
Yeah. Well,
I'll take
see, I always say, look, I'm going to take the $1 million in Amazon gift cards because I'm shopping on Amazon every day.
I know, me too.
And but someone a couple of weeks ago surprised me with what they said about this. They said, I would take the $1 million in Amazon gift cards and then I would divide them up and give to homeless people.
Oh,
And I was like, oh, I never really thought about that.
Oh, that person. That person wins. That's the best.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, here I'm thinking about what I'm going to buy. So, well, thank you for playing that segment of Would You Rather. All right, so let's get back to it. So give us 2 or 3 things that an individual can do to help themselves if they're in the sales industry or if they're trying to get into sales industry and specifically, let's say even healthcare sales, right? Because you understand that space a lot. What are 2 or 3 skill sets that people should have?
I definitely think that we used to talk about being a great problem solver, but I've come to realize that if people already if they have already diagnosed what they think their problem is, I think you actually have to be really good at like root cause analysis of what's going on. So if they come to you and say like, I want to buy a vacuum cleaner, it's like, well, what are you really trying to do? Do you need to have like, are the carpets just really dirty because maybe like there's stuff flying in through the windows, or maybe you need new windows, or maybe the carpets are just the wrong carpets for the house and they're just trapping everything in it. I think you have to be a great like watcher of the environment, an observer, and then sort of get the person to understand what is the real issue. I also think with sales nowadays that like with the plethora of information that's on the internet, you can't really just go in there and be like the talking encyclopedia, right? Yeah, for sure you have to know your product, but more and more like people can just buy stuff online. So it's all about like you have to understand like real techniques of persuasion and problem framing, and be able to apply those in a way that will make you successful. And the last thing I would say to that too is I recently learned a really interesting technique about like looking at who's talking in a meeting. And you sort of draw out not just who's talking the most. Well, while that's important, it's like who are people talking to the most? So you sort of write everyone's name down and it's like, let's say Jane is talking an awful lot, but no one is talking to Jane. And maybe Miles only talks twice, but everyone is talking to Miles. So again, that's the type of data I think you have to be really good at observing and then being able to ask those questions, really find out like what's actually going on here, and then make your, frame things up in a way that is persuasive and gets them to take action on it. So pretty complex, but definitely not something that like, it's different than it used to be. I guess that's what I'm saying.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I like that. When a person gets into, no matter which field they're in or which company they're in, but once they get in, everybody's putting their best foot forward to get in, right? So now that person has landed that job. What's some piece of advice or 1 or 2 things that you would tell them that they need to focus on to keep that job?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, definitely like it's in I think it's important to be your own cheerleader and to make sure that people know about all the great stuff that you're doing. Because a lot of times, especially in sales, as people won't necessarily you won't necessarily be able to surface all the amazing stuff that you're doing. So, talk it up. Like, make sure your manager knows. Make sure you draw on those opportunities or those instances, like in a meeting. Oh yes, so just like when I was doing this, like not in a way that seems like you're bragging.
Right. Mm-hmm.
You have to find a way to like let people know all the great stuff that you're doing and how you're meeting your goals.
So Sarah, what you're saying is you got to brag on the down low.
Ooh, absolutely stealthy, like humble brag, right? You got to do those.
Yes.
Humble brag. I think that's important, and I think too, it's also important to bring something new to the table. Again, like float an idea. I think that, it's really easy to fall into passive voice or sort of supportive voice where you're just listening to the download of everyone else. But people really respect you when you say like, well, what about this? Or like, I've been thinking about, and, how about if we tried? Like that goes a long way, is just to put your ideas out there. So, put your ideas out there and tell people what you've done, basically.
Yes, I absolutely love that. A lot of times outside of sales organizations, people become they get afraid that they're going to be bragging on themselves, right? And then they don't tell the organization what they're doing, and then they get upset if other people get promoted ahead of them or get an opportunity ahead of them. Well, it's because they didn't really speak up to say what things they're doing, right? In sales organization, and in our in Avid sales, we didn't have that problem with salespeople being able to tell what they did. They talk about it all the time.
But don't be afraid to innovate either. And like, just because it's been done that way all the time doesn't mean there's not another way to do it. So, try it out. And also like don't be afraid of failure, because that's where you're really going to learn. So if you do something and it doesn't work, that's okay. That's great. You've learned now. And now you move on and you try something else.
Absolutely. Fear binds people up in their mind. What if they don't like it? What if my manager doesn't get it? What if all day long? Just go out and do it, because what if it works?
Totally. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Just give it a go. Like that's how it is, right? You just try it out and see if it works, and keep refining then too. You learn each time.
Absolutely. Yes. So what role does networking play in navigating a corporate career, a corporate ladder?
It's funny that you say that. I think that increasingly your digital presence is really important. And I don't think this was something that we really went hard at in Abbott, but like I definitely see examples now from current all-staters who really use LinkedIn to its fullest advantage. So they're promoting articles, they are sharing even just sort of like pics of things that they're doing in their spare time. But when you start to get that followership, right, like literally like your metrics go up and people can start to see you, and then you can start to talk about, okay, like, well, this is my thoughts on, in my space, like on learning and development nowadays, and this is what we're working on. I think that increasingly your digital presence is just as important as your presence in the office. So to me, that's the most important networking that you can do. Because when we look at like how long people stay at jobs nowadays, it's for millennials and what's the next generation?
Gen Z. We call them iGeners.
Right. It's like 3 to 5 years tops at anyone. It's typically about 2 or 3 years. So, you're going to change jobs. So get that digital presence, like right where you want it. Share a lot of content, curate what people see. I think that that's really important. And share all that you're learning as well, because people really like to see that too. And I think too, with networking, this is a great opportunity too of like giving people like a hand up. It's also like a very unfair system where if you don't have a lot of networks already, it's hard to get them. And so sponsor people, right? Sponsor folks to say like, hey, like this is my friend and she's been doing amazing stuff, like help them out too. I think that's really, really important that we all do that.
Yes. I like how you just said that. Sponsor people. That's helping. You're helping them but they're really helping you because you're getting them to say something. I like how you praise that, those sponsor people. Okay. I love that. So for entrepreneurs out there, okay, I want you to understand what Sarah is saying, not just in corporate, but also in your entrepreneurial journey. Don't be afraid of going social. Social media is one of the biggest platforms out there that you can get your message out, right? When she says digital presence, that's what she's talking about, right? Get on social media so people can understand what you're doing, why you're doing it, how you're doing it,
Yeah.
right? Absolutely love that. And then the second thing she said was sponsor people, meaning you may have to, they scratch your back, you scratch their back, right? You help them with something so that they can then promote you and promote what you're doing. Ultimately, it's going to help you. Awesome. Thank you very much for sharing that.
Mm-hmm.
Growth is one of those things that has to be intentional. John Maxwell has a law called the law of intentionality, and it says growth is intentional. It won't happen if you don't make it happen, right? So what do you do for personal and professional growth?
So I definitely try to challenge myself to learn things that I can apply, pretty easily, but that maybe are outside of my comfort zone. So I have recently I'm working on becoming a Luma human-centered design practitioner. And so, as a facilitator, I've always really enjoyed, creating exercises and whatnot. Basically, what this class does is that it allows you to take some patterns from design thinking and apply them like recipes. So let's say you're trying to look at like what are the features we should have for this product. So you can do something like, okay, so like let's look at like all the features in the world, and then we'll do an exercise on which one would you buy and why would you buy it. And so I try to really challenge myself to like learn something like this that's going to help me, again, have more empathy with those who I'm working with, but also like help me in my career currently, because it's easy to take these exercises and have an application. So that's how I try to improve, is that, again, I always want to, you want to meet your goals, right? You want to
Mm-hmm.
show up the star with your better than expected at the end of the year. So I want to do that, but I also really want to get better and sharper at things too. So that's what I've been choosing this year. Next year, I'm going to be working harder at being a leader who leads with analytics. And I've registered for some classes with Kellogg School of Business on different analytics models to help me understand that a lot better too, which is very scary, not something that I'm super jazzed about, but I know it's important. So again, things you can apply, but things that scare you a little bit are always good too. So that's what I like to do.
That is awesome. I love that. So folks, again, it goes back to what I said earlier. Growth has to be intentional. So you see Sarah she's leading people in the leadership and development space, but she's not getting lost in that. She's too busy that she's not growing herself at the same time. So take that advice and put that into action in your life. So Sarah, so what is so let's say when you're in your house and it's like time to just like chill out and relax, and you know what, I'm going to get my favorite dessert.
I love it. I really love, like, seems like there's a real proliferation of like fancy donuts these days, and so I'm real into that. A big order of fancy donuts.
Okay.
Right? You got all the records behind me, so love to put on some music, all kinds of music. My husband and I both love like everything from, I don't know, modern to classical to like Afro beats. Like we've got quite a collection of records there. So yeah, chilling out with a donut, maybe having a glass of wine, some music. Normal stuff.
Music and donuts. Okay, I see. I like that. See, I'm just a plain glazed donut guy.
You got to try like the maple like maple bacon glazed, and like it'll blow your mind. So
Oh, wow.
that's my recommendation.
All right, so I'll have to try that. Maple glazed,
Maple bacon glazed. That's like
maple bacon glazed. Okay. Sweet and salty. Okay. So do you have a mentor? And if so, how has that mentor impacted your professional journey?
this is actually like I saw this question and I sort of got like choked up. So I had a mentor until very recently. He actually just passed away.
Oh,
He was only 42 and he had a massive heart attack, and it was so sudden. It was just a couple of months ago, but he was so I think it's important to choose a mentor who's in a vertical that's different than yours. So as I said, I've been taking this Luma class, and he was our vice president of user experience design. So a couple, skip level, like 2 levels up from me. Pradeep was like this truly amazing guy who always made time for others, and just I love that about him. But he also was so giving, and so had this sort of warmth and caring about him that was charismatic, and was definitely always willing to share his knowledge. And when he passed away, I mean, the tributes that came in on LinkedIn, like some of his UX designers made like pictures of him and things too. And I thought, like, that is a leader. I mean, people from all across the globe. When I started my job, I was told to put together these skill builder events, and they said, book big names, get these, like, here are the new skills, like design thinking and systems thinking, and like things I didn't even know anything about. And they're like, but don't worry, this guy Pradeep knows all about it. He'll help you. And that's how I met him. And he hooked me up with so many amazing people who taught me about things like service design and just all kinds of stuff that I really didn't know about. But when he passed away, it was like he did that for everyone. So like so many people were like, this guy really was caring and shared of his knowledge. And so, sorry, I know that that's like sort of an impassioned speech, but like as a mentor, like that's what you want, right?
yeah.
Find someone who's maybe in a little bit of a different space, and just do everything you can to like show them different ideas. And I think that that's truly what being a mentor is all about. And I just, wanted to honor what he gave me. He was just an amazing person.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. And sorry about his about his passing. But obviously he had an impact on you.
Mhm.
That's really kind of where I was headed with mentors. Because a lot of times people go through their career and they don't have a mentor. Oh well, no, I know it. I have it. I'm good. I don't need anyone. And at the end of the day, everyone needs someone to, one, hold them accountable, help challenge them, right? May even be that person in the room speaking for them when they don't even know that, right? So mentors can play a major role in a lot of different ways.
I remember I would say that one of the first times that we had a mentoring session together, he had me do a SWOT analysis on myself. And I thought this is such a fascinating activity, because you really do start to diagnose, like, what are your blind spots, and where are you over indexing, and that sort of thing. And it kind of continued from there. So like picking a mentor who really understands things, like not just maybe someone who doesn't necessarily know your exact world, but who understands like the world of, I don't know, who just has different skills and can help you in different ways. I think that's really helpful too,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah. You want someone that's going to help stretch you, right?
Yeah, right, exactly. Help stretch
Mhm.
you.
Yeah, teach you some things that maybe you don't know, or you haven't experienced. So that's awesome. So Sarah, you've had a lot of success in life and in your career, but we've all had times where we failed at something, right? So give us a time when you failed at something, and what was a lesson you learned from it?
I think that I definitely failed at quite a number of things. It's funny. I'll tell you my story of when I realized I wanted to leave Abbott, and the story was that it was sort of during the Me Too movement, and we were in a course, and it was similar to the Me Too movement, and I started to clap, and no one else clapped in the room, and I thought, like I thought for sure if I just kept clapping, like I could start this clap, and I didn't, and it really bugged me, and I thought about it, and I thought about it, and I thought about it, and I realized that like I had failed to align my values with where the organization was at that moment, and that was a fundamental misalignment. And it wasn't going to, there wasn't going to be something I could like get the paddles out and resuscitate it, because it had become a very just sales at all cost driven culture. I know I'm like preaching to the converted here, right? Like that was where we were at. But it was this fundamental misalignment of like, I thought I could change things by, sort of trying to mention them more or like get this in there, but it wasn't going to happen. And when I made the decision that I wanted to find somewhere else that was more aligned to my values, it was a failure, but it was also this like great like awakening of like, I think I'm going to be happier if I am in a company that was really more sort of attuned to my values. And so I really took a long time like looking out there, and I saw things like diversity and inclusion is like core value, and we win together, and we're all sort of like, it was just very much like they really put out their values right there at Allstate. And I thought, yeah, I think I'm gonna go for it. And I honestly never thought that I would leave Abbott, because it's sort of hard to leave, right? You've got a nice pension, and it's like it's
right.
easy. But I failed to align my values with the organization, but I was able to sort of move forward and do that. And I am happier now. And I think that I see the same with you, right?
Oh,
you are
absolutely.
living your life, living your best life, and doing like what you love. Because Cedrick, what I remember most about you is that you loved the leadership classes. You loved working with your team. You loved all the different sort of like paradigms and processes and things like that would like get performance. And I know that what you hated was just this constant, like the numbers game, right? That it was never enough. And so I see you doing a very similar thing as well.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. First of all, thank you very much for sharing and being transparent. And it's amazing, but I've never said it since I retired, but similar type thing. I knew that my last year, I already knew I wanted to retire at 50, but I knew my last year going through that entire 2017, that there's no way that I would go another day.
Yeah.
Like that. And I remember, it's amazing. I remember having this conversation with Dan Harmon, and I said, I said, Dan, I guarantee you, what's his name? Albrecht was going to fire me, because I said, he and I had a come to Jesus meeting about these numbers, and I gave him a lot. I said, here's what I want you to go and look at to see what my team has done. And I was very passionate about it. I'll never forget that conversation. And Dan said, yeah, did he ever come back to you and talk to you about that? I said, no. He says, well, I'm not surprised. He says, but here's the thing. He came to me. He did go look at what you said to go look at. And he said, Cedrick is right. I said, look, I want you to see what my team has done, And in that moment right there, I knew I couldn't go anymore. I mean, I already knew I wanted to retire, but I just knew that even if I wanted to, I couldn't go, because I wasn't having fun doing the stuff that I wanted to do. And it wasn't aligned with what I wanted to help my team with. So I spent the rest of my time helping them understand how to grow themselves and how to, persevere through those.
And that's your legacy. That's what you left, right?
Yeah.
And that's what lives on. I'd say the last thing I would say, I know we're out of time, is that when I was in Japan, there was this great concept there. It's called Gambaru, and all the school children there know it, and it means to do your best with honor. And I think that that's the most important thing that we can all do as we live our lives in this, crazy pandemic. But what show up at work too is just like Gambaru, right? Like we do our best with honor, and the with honor part is the part that should never get compromised. That is the absolute most important part.
Absolutely, and honor and your values. If you get away from that, you're not going to be your true authentic self. Right. And you're not going to really be happy. Sarah, I want to tell you, thank you very much for coming on the show. We ended the show being like very, very transparent. I'd never talked about this.
I have the smile, but then I sort of like levy this like deadly charge too, and make everyone like really, really honest.
Well, I thoroughly enjoyed you coming on the show, folks. Look, if you joined this late or you're listening, you tuned in late and you listened to the replay, go into the comments and look at the links that Sarah has shared with you for the 5 fastest skill sets for business professionals, the 5 fastest skill sets for sales pros, the 5 fastest skill sets for IT pros, and the 5 fastest skill sets for engineers. What you're going to need in the future. She has been very gracious with her time and what she shared with us, and these links are going to be very, very helpful for you. So I do have one last question for you, Sarah. If there was a book that was written about you, what would the title be? And on the back of the book, what would the summary say about you?
Okay, I think the title would be maybe Always Leaving Laughing, because I totally believe in, remember the Seinfeld episode where he like drops the mic and leaves the room? Like, that's totally how our team calls end up being. We have a blast and we always have a laugh. And I think the summary would be that, I always tried to Gambaru everything, right? To just be a great leader, someone who is very real, someone who can lead the team and get them thinking differently. But ultimately, like, I'm there to be a catalyst for others' development. So we have a laugh, but we also try really hard. And yeah, that was very poorly constructed, but I guess that's the idea.
Hey, that's what live does to you, right?
A real moment there.
Exactly. Well, I've thoroughly enjoyed the conversation and having you on the show. Hopefully you had a good time as well.
Fantastic. And connect with me on LinkedIn. Anyone who is listening, happy to connect with you there.
Yes, you definitely want to connect with Sarah on LinkedIn. Awesome person. You're going to learn a lot from her, just following her LinkedIn profile. So folks, tomorrow night, tomorrow is election day in across the United States. And but before the election results are in, here's what you do. We always have Talk Leadership with Cedrick on Tuesday night. It's at 5:30 Central Time. So tune in. We have another dynamic leader with you, Miss Venetia Bailey. She is a senior leader in the healthcare sales space, and she's going to be on with us. And then at 6:30, on our Empowered Living platform, we have the Black Entrepreneurs Institute live show, and you don't want to miss the show tomorrow night. Man, it's going to be dynamic. So tune in for that. That's 6:30 Central Time on the Empowered Living platform. And then at 7:30, come right back here, right before the election results come back in at 7:30 Central Time with Talk with TK and the Mindset 180 Academy. Thursday, 2 p.m. Central Time. You'll catch me on my radio show, Talk with Cedrick, Talk Leadership with Cedrick on the radio. Just go to ibgr.network and you will be able to find me there. And I'm going to leave you with, if you're not at the table,